My name is Beatrice. And the night they stood around me like judges, holding papers and smiling like they had already won, was the night everything changed. I still remember the sound of the ceiling fan above my head. Slow. Loud. Like it was counting the seconds of my life. "You don't have a choice," one of them said. That was when I realized something very important. They thought they owned me. But what they didn't know was that I had already made my move. Before I tell you how their faces froze in shock, let me say this. If you love powerful, emotional stories about strength, secrets, and unexpected revenge, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story like this. And tell me in the comments, what country are you watching from right now? I want to know who is here with me. Now listen closely. Because what I did next left them completely speechless. They were all in the living room. My son. His wife. Two lawyers I had never met before. Papers spread across the table like traps waiting to snap shut. I stood there holding my handbag, my heart beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. "This is for your own good," my daughter-in-law said softly, but her eyes were sharp, cold, calculating. They wanted control. Control over my money. Control over my house. Control over me. My son wouldn't even look me in the eyes. "Mom," he said, clearing his throat, "just sign it. It makes things easier for everyone." Easier for who? I looked at the papers. Big words. Long sentences. Legal language meant to confuse someone like me. They thought I was old. Weak. Easy to push. They thought wrong. My hands were shaking, but not because I was scared. It was because I was angry. "You planned this," I said quietly. They exchanged looks. No one answered. That silence told me everything. And that's when I smiled. Not a big smile. Just enough. The lawyers frowned. "What?" my daughter-in-law snapped. "Why are you smiling?" I reached into my handbag, and their smiles disappeared. But before I tell you what I pulled out, let me take you back. Back to how it all started. Back to when they first began to control me. I was not always like this. Once I was strong. Independent. I worked hard all my life. I raised my children alone after their father died. I paid bills. I saved money. I built that house with years of sweat and sacrifice. That house meant everything to me. But after I turned 65, things changed. It started small. "You're too old to handle finances," my daughter-in-law said one evening while clearing dishes. "I can still read numbers," I replied. She laughed. "That's not what I meant." Soon, my son started helping with my bank account. "I'll manage it for you," he said. "Just to be safe." I trusted him. That was my first mistake. Little by little, they took control. They decided when I should go out, who I should talk to, what I should spend my money on. If I asked questions, they sighed. If I complained, they said I was being difficult. And if I pushed back, they reminded me I was alone. "You need us," my daughter-in-law would whisper like a warning. At night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how my own child had become a stranger. Still, I stayed quiet. I watched. I listened. And I planned. The real turning point came one afternoon. I overheard a phone call. My daughter-in-law was in the kitchen, her voice low but excited. "Yes, once she signs, it's done. The house, the accounts, everything. She won't even know what happened." My chest tightened. "She trusts us," she continued. "Old people are easy. Old people are easy." That sentence burned into my soul. I walked back to my room slowly, my legs weak. I cried that night. Not because I was helpless, but because I realized they saw me as nothing. A problem to manage. A thing to control. That night, I made a decision. I would never let them win. I started making quiet moves. I called an old friend who used to work in law. I asked questions. I learned. I visited places without telling anyone. I signed papers they didn't know about. I protected what was mine. And then I waited. Which brings us back to the living room. Back to the table. Back to the papers they thought would end me. The lawyer slid the pen toward me. Just sign here, he said. Everyone watched. My son finally looked up. Please, Mom, he said. Don't make this hard. I looked at him. At the boy I once held in my arms. And I felt something break inside me. I slowly reached into my handbag. The room was silent. My daughter-in-law leaned forward. What is she doing? She whispered. I pulled it out and placed it on the table. The lawyers stiffened. My son's face went pale. My daughter-in-law stood up so fast a chair fell backward. No, that's not possible, she said, her voice shaking. I leaned forward and spoke calmly. You thought you could control me, I said. But you forgot one thing. They stared at me in disbelief. And in that moment I knew. The power had finally shifted. And just when they thought it couldn't get worse, the doorbell rang. And the person standing outside would change everything. The doorbell rang again. Loud. Sharp. Final. Every head in the room turned toward the front door. No one moved. My daughter-in-law's face had lost all its color. Her lips were shaking, but she tried to hide it by folding her arms. Did you invite someone? She asked, forcing a laugh. I said nothing. My son swallowed hard. Mom, what is going on? I slowly stood up. My knees were weak, but my voice was steady. You told me I had no choice, I said. Now you're about to learn how wrong you were. The doorbell rang a third time. This time, someone knocked. Firm. Confident. Like they belonged there. The lawyer closest to the door cleared his throat. Should we answer? Yes, I said calmly. Please do. My daughter-in-law snapped her head toward me. You don't give orders here. I looked her straight in the eyes. Not anymore. That silence again. Heavy. Thick. Finally, my son walked to the door. His hand shook as he reached for the handle. When he opened it, his shoulders stiffened. Who are you? He asked. I'm here for Beatrice, a firm voice replied. My heart pounded, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was relief. The man stepped inside. Tall. Neatly dressed. Serious eyes. He looked around the room once, then focused on me. Good evening, ma'am, he said respectfully. I apologize for being late. My daughter-in-law let out a sharp breath. Late for what? Who even are you? The man turned to her slowly. I am a legal representative, he said. And I am here to protect my client. The room exploded. This is ridiculous, my daughter-in-law shouted. We already have lawyers here. The two lawyers at the table exchanged uneasy looks. The man glanced at the documents spread across the table. These papers, he said calmly, are exactly why I'm here. My son looked confused. Mom, what did you do? I walked closer to the table and placed both hands on it. I did what I should have done a long time ago, I said. I stopped trusting people who were hurting me. Let me slow down and explain. Because none of this happened overnight. After that day in the kitchen, when I heard those cruel words, I stopped being blind. I started noticing everything. The way my daughter-in-law always spoke for me. The way my son avoided conversations about money. The way bills disappeared before I could read them. I wasn't stupid. I was quiet. There is a difference. One morning, I told them I was going to the doctor. Instead, I took a bus across town. I walked into a small office with peeling paint and a sign that read, Free legal consultation. Seniors welcome. My hands were shaking when I told my story. The woman listening to me didn't interrupt once. When I finished, She leaned forward and said something that changed my life. They are trying to strip you of your rights. I felt my chest tighten. But I signed some things, I whispered. She nodded. That's what they count on. Confusion, trust, fear. She explained everything in simple words. How control works. How manipulation hides behind kindness. How power is taken quietly. And then she said, you still have options. Hope is a dangerous thing. But I grabbed it anyway. From that day on, I kept a notebook hidden under my mattress. Dates. Conversations. Names. Every time my daughter-in-law spoke for me, I wrote it down. Every time my son refused to show me bank statements, I wrote it down. I stopped arguing. I stopped crying in front of them. Instead, I smiled. And they thought they were winning. Back in the living room, my daughter-in-law pointed at the man. You can't just walk in here and accuse us of things. He looked at her calmly. I don't need to accuse. I have records. The lawyers at the table shifted uncomfortably. What records? One of them asked. The man pulled out a folder. Thick. Heavy. The sound it made when he placed it on the table echoed in the room. My son's eyes widened. That folder, the man said, contains copies of bank statements, property documents, recorded conversations, and signed protections. My daughter-in-law laughed nervously. She doesn't even know how to do half of that. I spoke up. You taught me how to stay quiet, not how to stay foolish. Her smile vanished. One of the lawyers picked up a paper and read it. His eyebrows slowly rose. This document, he said carefully, changes things. The other lawyer leaned in. This shows full ownership, retained. My son turned to me, panic filling his eyes. Mom, he said softly, why didn't you just talk to me? I looked at him for a long moment. Because every time I tried, I said, you chose silence. He had no answer. My daughter-in-law slammed her hand on the table. This is a setup, she shouted. She planned this. Yes, I said quietly. I did. The room fell silent again. But this time, the silence belonged to me. The legal representative closed the folder. As of today, he said, any attempt to force signatures, transfer assets, or control access will have consequences. The lawyers exchanged looks. One of them stood up. We need to pause this meeting. My daughter-in-law spun toward him. You can't just leave. We can, he replied. And we should. That's when fear finally appeared on her face. Real fear. But just when I thought the worst was over, my son took a step toward me. His voice dropped low. You embarrassed us, he said. I felt my heart crack. After everything I've done for you, he continued, you chose strangers over family? Before I could answer, my daughter-in-law leaned close and whispered something that made my blood run cold. You think this is over? She hissed. You have no idea what you've started. I looked into her eyes. And for the first time I saw it. Hatred. Pure. Cold. Dangerous. Then my phone vibrated in my handbag. Once. Twice. A message appeared on the screen. I glanced at it. And my breath caught in my throat. Because what I read told me this fight was far from over. And the next move they made could destroy everything I had worked to protect. My phone vibrated again. This time, everyone heard it. The room was quiet, but not calm. It was the kind of quiet that feels sharp, like broken glass on the floor. I slowly reached into my handbag and pulled out my phone. My daughter-in-law watched me like a hawk. Who is that? She asked, her voice tight. I didn't answer. I read the message. And my hands started to shake. Do not go home tonight. They are making a move. For a moment, I could not breathe. My son noticed my face change. Mom. What is it? I locked my phone and slipped it back into my bag. Nothing, I said. But it was not nothing. It was everything. The lawyers began gathering their papers. "We will be in touch," one of them said quickly, avoiding eye contact. They wanted out. They could feel the ground shifting under their feet. As soon as the lawyers left, the room felt smaller, colder. My legal representative turned to me. "Ma'am, we should leave as well." My daughter-in-law laughed. "Leave? Where would she go?" I met her eyes. "Somewhere safe." That word, safe, made her jaw tighten. "You're being dramatic," she said. "No one is threatening you." I thought about the message on my phone. I thought about the way she whispered earlier. And I knew something ugly was coming. As we walked toward the door, my son followed. "Mom, please," he said, grabbing my arm. "Don't do this." I gently pulled my arm away. "Let go," I said. His grip tightened. "Why are you acting like we're enemies?" he asked, his voice cracking. I looked at him, really looked at him. "I didn't choose this," I said softly. "You did. Every time you stayed quiet." His eyes filled with tears. But I kept walking. Because tears don't fix betrayal. Outside, the evening air hit my face. Cool. Sharp. Real. My legal representative opened his car door for me. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere they don't expect," he said. As we drove away, I looked back at the house. The house I built. The house I loved. And I wondered if I would ever feel safe inside it again. On the ride, he finally spoke. "That message you received," he said carefully, "was from my office." My heart skipped. "You knew." "We suspected they might try something once control slipped away," he replied. "People who lose power often panic. Panic makes people dangerous." We stopped at a small apartment building across town. Nothing fancy. Quiet. Private. "This will be temporary," he said. "But it's secure." As I stepped inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Just a little. That night, I didn't sleep. Every sound made me sit up. A car passing. A door closing. A voice in the distance. Around midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it. Then I answered. "Hello." There was breathing on the other end. Slow. Heavy. Then a voice. "You think you're smart," my daughter-in-law said softly. "But you forgot one thing." My heart pounded. "What?" "You still live under our name." The line went dead. I sat there shaking. She was right about one thing. This was far from over. The next morning, I met with my legal representative again. "We need to talk about your will," he said. "My will?" I asked. "Yes," he replied. "Because they might try to challenge it. Or worse." "Worse?" I repeated. He nodded. "They could try to claim you are not mentally fit." That word hit me hard. Not fit. Crazy. Useless. "That's how control works," he continued. "They take your voice." I clenched my fists. "They won't," I said. Over the next few days, I stayed hidden. No calls. No visits. But the messages kept coming. From my son. "Please come home. She's angry. You're tearing the family apart." I didn't reply. Because the family was already broken. One afternoon, my legal representative brought me documents to sign. "These protect you," he said. "Medical decisions. Financial decisions. Property." I read every line. Slowly. Carefully. When I signed, my hand was steady. For the first time in a long time. Then came the twist I didn't expect. A knock at the apartment door. 3 slow knocks. I froze. "No one knows you're here," my legal representative whispered. Another knock. My heart raced. He peeked through the door viewer. Then he turned to me. "You need to see this," he said. He opened the door just enough. And there, standing in the hallway, was my son. Alone. His eyes were red. His shoulders slumped. "Mom," he said softly. "Please, just hear me out." Every part of me wanted to close the door. But another part, the part that raised him, hesitated. I stepped forward. "What do you want?" I asked. He swallowed. "I didn't know how bad it was," he said. "She kept things from me." I laughed bitterly. "Like you kept things from me?" He flinched. "She's planning something," he whispered. "Something big." My heart dropped. "What kind of something?" Before he could answer, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Fast. Angry. A familiar voice rang out. "There you are." My daughter-in-law appeared at the end of the hall. Her eyes locked onto me. And in that moment I knew. She was done pretending. The moment I saw her at the end of the hallway, my stomach dropped. She was not smiling. Not pretending. Not acting kind. Her face was hard, tight with anger she could no longer hide. "There you are," she repeated louder this time, running away like a child. My son stepped in front of me without thinking. "Stop," he said. "Not here." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "So now you protect her," she snapped. "After everything she's done?" I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't fear. It was clarity. People talk about moments when everything becomes clear. This was mine. I finally understood that the woman standing in front of me was not family. She was a threat. "Leave," my legal representative said firmly, stepping forward. "You are trespassing." She ignored him and kept her eyes on me. "You think hiding in some little apartment changes anything," she said. "You belong to us." That word again. Belong. My hands curled into fists. "I don't belong to anyone," I said quietly. She tilted her head and smiled. But it was an ugly smile. "We'll see." Neighbors had begun peeking through their doors. She noticed and lowered her voice. "You want to do this here?" she whispered. "Or do you want me to tell them how unstable you are?" My son turned to her sharply. "Don't." She looked at him with disgust. "You're weak." Then she turned back to me. "You're old," she said softly. "And old people forget things. Doctors notice. Courts notice." There it was. The plan. They wanted to say I was not well. Not capable. Not sane. My legs felt heavy, but I didn't step back. "You taught me to stay quiet," I said. "But you forgot I was listening." She scoffed. "Listening won't save you." My legal representative raised his phone. "Everything you are saying is being recorded," he said calmly. Her eyes flickered. Just for a second. But I saw it. Fear. She laughed loudly. "Record whatever you want. No one believes old women." That sentence cut deep. Because for a long time, she was right. But not anymore. The apartment manager came down the hallway. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. She turned sweet in a heartbeat. "Oh no," she said with a smile. "Just a family misunderstanding." I stepped forward. "This woman is harassing me," I said clearly. I asked her to leave. The manager looked surprised. My daughter-in-law's smile slipped. The manager nodded. "Ma'am, you need to go." She stared at him. Then at me. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "You will regret this." She turned and walked away, heels clicking against the floor like a countdown. My son stood frozen. "What have you done?" he whispered. I looked at him. "What you allowed," I replied. He covered his face with his hands. "She's dangerous," he said. I didn't know she would go this far. I believed him. Too late. That night, my legal representative sat across from me at the small table. "She just crossed a line," he said. "Threats like that help us." "Help us how?" I asked. "They show intent." "Intent." Such a cold word for something so personal. The next day, everything moved fast. Doctor's appointments were scheduled. Psych evaluations. Paperwork. Why? I asked. So no one can ever claim you are not fit, he said. I nodded. I would prove them wrong in every way. At the clinic, the doctor smiled kindly. Do you know why you're here today? She asked. Yes, I said. Because someone wants to silence me. The doctor raised an eyebrow. Go on. So I told her everything. Slowly. Clearly. Honestly. When I finished, she leaned back and sighed. You are sharp, she said. And brave. I almost cried. That afternoon, I received another message. From my son. She's furious. She says you humiliated her. I didn't respond. Another message followed. She's contacting family. Saying you're confused. My chest tightened. She was spreading her story. 2 days later, my legal representative walked in holding his phone. We have a problem, he said. My heart skipped. What kind of problem? She filed a petition, he said. Emergency guardianship. I felt the air leave my lungs. She's trying to take full control. Legally. My hands shook. Can she do that? She can try, he said. And that's what makes this dangerous. I closed my eyes. This was the move. The one she warned me about. That night, I sat alone, staring at the wall. I thought about my life. All the years I stayed quiet to keep peace. All the times I trusted the wrong people. And then I realized something. She underestimated me. Again. Because there was one thing she didn't know. One file. One truth. One secret. That could destroy her entire case. I reached under the mattress and pulled out my notebook. The one I never showed anyone. I flipped to the last page. And smiled. Because tomorrow, I would finally speak. And when I did, they would never control me again. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not just the air. The feeling. Cold benches. Cold walls. Cold looks. I sat quietly beside my legal representative, my hands folded in my lap, my notebook hidden inside my bag. The same notebook I had kept for months. The same one filled with dates, words, and truths no one thought I had the strength to keep. Across the room, my daughter-in-law sat straight-backed and confident. She was dressed neatly, hair perfect, face calm. Like a woman who believed she had already won. My son sat beside her, his shoulders slumped, eyes glued to the floor. I did not look at him. If I did, my heart might weaken. And I could not afford that today. The judge entered, and everyone stood. Please be seated, he said. His voice was calm, but serious. This was not a family argument anymore. This was about control. The judge looked at the file in front of him. This is an emergency petition for guardianship, he said. Filed on the grounds that the respondent is no longer capable of managing her affairs. My daughter-in-law nodded slightly, as if in agreement with his words. My stomach tightened. In simple terms, the judge continued, you are claiming she cannot make decisions for herself. Yes, Your Honor, my daughter-in-law said softly. We're worried about her safety. Safety. The word sounded fake in her mouth. The judge turned to me. Ma'am, he said kindly, do you understand why you are here today? Yes, I said clearly. Because someone wants to take my voice. The room went quiet. My daughter-in-law shifted in her seat. She stood up. Your Honor, she said, my mother-in-law has been confused lately. She disappears without telling anyone. She refuses help. She believes people are against her. I felt my hands tighten. She forgets conversations, my daughter-in-law continued. She's not acting like herself. My son nodded slowly. I closed my eyes. This was the story they chose. My legal representative stood. With permission, Your Honor, he said. We would like to present evidence. Proceed, the judge replied. My heart pounded. This was it. My representative handed over medical reports. Psychological evaluations, he said. Completed within the last week. All confirm full mental capacity. The judge reviewed them carefully. My daughter-in-law's confident smile faded just a little. We also have signed documents, my representative continued, establishing protected decision-making and independent counsel. The judge nodded. But my daughter-in-law wasn't done. She stood again. Your Honor, she said quickly. She was manipulated into signing those. I inhaled sharply. Manipulated. Again. The judge looked at me. Ma'am, he said, would you like to speak? This was the moment. I reached into my bag and pulled out the notebook. My daughter-in-law's eyes widened. What is that? She snapped. The judge raised a hand. Let her speak. My hands trembled as I opened the notebook. But my voice did not. I started writing this the day I heard her say, "Old people are easy," I said. The room went still. My son's head snapped up. I turned a page. Every date, I continued. Every time I was spoken for, blocked from my own money, or threatened with being called unstable. I read aloud. Word for word. Dates. Times. Exact phrases. My daughter-in-law's face tightened. This is ridiculous, she said. Anyone could write lies. The judge raised his eyebrows. Anyone could, he said. But consistency matters. Then my legal representative spoke again. We also have recordings, he said. My daughter-in-law shot to her feet. That's illegal. No, he replied calmly. And we can play them now. The judge nodded. Proceed. My heart raced. The recording played. Her voice filled the courtroom. You belong to us. No one believes old women. You forget things. Gasps rippled through the room. My son looked like he had been punched. That's taken out of context, she shouted. The judge raised his voice. Enough. Silence fell. The judge leaned back in his chair. This court takes allegations of exploitation very seriously, he said. My daughter-in-law's confidence crumbled. This petition, the judge continued, is denied. My knees nearly gave out. Denied. But then he added. However, he said, I am ordering a full investigation. The word echoed. Investigation. My daughter-in-law's face drained of color. After court, my son followed me into the hallway. Mom, he said, tears streaming down his face. I didn't know she recorded those things. I stopped. I recorded nothing, I said softly. She did. He stared at me. What do you mean? I looked at him. She forgot I was always in the room. As we walked away, my legal representative leaned close. You did very well, he said. But this will make her desperate. I nodded. I know, I said. And that scared me more than anything. That evening, as I sat alone in the apartment, my phone buzzed. One message. Unknown number. You just made a very big mistake. I stared at the screen. Slowly, I smiled. Because for the first time, I was no longer afraid. And tomorrow, I would make my next move. The message stayed on my screen long after the light faded from the room. You just made a very big mistake. I read it again. And again. Not because I was scared, but because I finally understood something very important. People only threaten you when they are losing. I locked my phone and set it down on the table. My legal representative had warned me. When people lose control, he said, they don't walk away. They escalate. That word echoed in my mind. Escalate. The next morning, I woke up to pounding on the apartment door. Not knocking. Pounding. My heart jumped into my throat. I checked the time. 7:12 a.m. Too early for visitors. I held my breath and listened. Open this door, a familiar voice shouted. My daughter-in-law. My legs felt weak. I grabbed my phone and quietly dialed my legal representative. Stay calm, he whispered. Do not open the door. The pounding grew louder. You can't hide forever, she yelled. I know you're in there. Neighbors' doors opened. Murmurs filled the hallway. I pressed my back against the wall, my heart racing. Then silence. Footsteps moving away. I exhaled slowly. An hour later, my phone buzzed. A picture appeared on the screen. My house. My real house. The one I built. And beneath it, a message. We're still in control. My hands shook. She was reminding me what she thought she owned. I met my legal representative later that day. This is harassment, he said, frowning at the messages. And intimidation. What can we do? I asked. Document everything, he replied. And prepare. Prepare for what? I didn't ask. I already knew. That afternoon, something worse happened. I went back to the apartment and found the door unlocked. My heart stopped. I knew I locked it. Slowly, I pushed it open. The room looked the same. Too normal. My bag was on the chair. My papers were stacked neatly. But something felt wrong. I walked to the bedroom. The mattress was lifted. My notebook was gone. The one thing I never let out of my sight. My chest tightened. She had been here. I sank onto the bed, shaking. That notebook was my shield. My proof. My voice. And now it was gone. I felt anger rise like fire. Not fear. Anger. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. You should have stayed quiet, my daughter-in-law said. My blood went cold. You broke into my apartment, I said. She laughed. You can't prove that. You stole my notebook. Silence. Then she said softly, you don't need it anymore. The line went dead. That night, I did not sleep. I sat by the window, watching shadows move across the street. Every sound felt close. Too close. The next day, my legal representative met me with grim news. She's filed another motion, he said, claiming you're paranoid. I laughed bitterly. Of course she did. She says you accused her of things that didn't happen, he continued. And that you are creating stories. My chest tightened. Without the notebook. She thought she had erased me. But she forgot something. I had already shared copies. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. I gave you copies, I said. His eyes widened. When? Before court, I replied. And to 2 other people. A slow smile crossed his face. That was smart, he said. I smiled too. She had underestimated me again. 2 days later, the tension reached a breaking point. I went to collect mail from my house, escorted. As I stepped inside, memories flooded me. My daughter-in-law stood in the living room, waiting. You're trespassing, I said calmly. She leaned closer. This is my house now, she whispered. And accidents happen. That word hit me hard. Accidents. I took a step back. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A message from my legal representative. Leave now. I turned toward the door. She grabbed my arm. Hard. Listen to me, she hissed. Sign the papers and this all ends. I pulled my arm free. No, I said. Her face twisted with rage. You're ruining everything, she screamed. I walked out without looking back. That night, police lights flashed outside the apartment. My heart pounded. A knock at the door. Ma'am, an officer said, we need to ask you some questions. I froze. What about? I asked. Your daughter-in-law filed a report, he said. She claims you threatened her. I laughed softly. Even now, she was trying. As the officers spoke, my legal representative arrived. Calm. Steady. He handed them documents. Recordings. Messages. Photos. The officers exchanged looks. One nodded. "Thank you, ma'am," he said. "We'll be in touch." As they left, my legal representative turned to me. "This is getting serious," he said. "But so is our case." I looked at him. "What happens next?" He met my eyes. "Next," he said, "we stop reacting." I leaned forward. "And do what?" He smiled slightly. "We expose her." My heart pounded. Because I knew, once the truth came out, she would have nothing left. Exposure does not happen all at once. It starts with whispers. And whispers, when repeated, become impossible to ignore. That was what my legal representative meant when he said we would stop reacting. "We're not chasing her lies anymore," he told me. "We're letting the truth walk on its own." At first, I didn't understand. I thought justice was loud. I was wrong. Justice is patient. The first step was quiet. Too quiet. We filed formal complaints. Not emotional ones. Documented ones. Dates. Times. Evidence. Every message she sent. Every threat. Every attempt to control or scare me. They went to places she never expected. Banks. Medical boards. Property offices. Systems that don't care about charm or tears. Only facts. A week passed. Then 2. No calls from her. No messages. No pounding on doors. The silence felt strange. Unnatural. Like the calm before a storm. Then the first crack appeared. My phone rang. An unfamiliar number. I answered. "Is this Beatrice?" A woman asked politely. "Yes," I replied. "My name is Grace," she said. "I'm calling from the bank." My heart skipped. "There's been a freeze placed on several accounts linked to your name," she continued. "We need to verify some transactions." I smiled. This was working. Later that day, another call. This time from a property office. "We're reviewing an attempted filing," the man said. "Your signature appears, but authorization does not." I exhaled slowly. "She tried," I whispered. "Yes," he replied. "And it raised concerns." Concerns. A powerful word. That evening, my son called. For the first time in days. "Mom," he said quietly, "things are happening." "What kind of things?" I asked. "She's angry," he admitted. "The bank asked questions. People are calling." I said nothing. "She thinks you're doing this on purpose," he continued. I finally spoke. "I am." Silence on the line. The next day, the storm arrived. I was sitting at the small kitchen table when my phone exploded with notifications. Messages. Missed calls. Voicemails. All from her. I didn't answer. Instead, I listened to one voicemail. Her voice was no longer calm. "You think you can ruin me?" she screamed. "I built this family." I deleted it. Without hesitation. My legal representative arrived that afternoon. "She's unraveling," he said. "And that's dangerous, but also revealing." "What do we do?" I asked. "We let her talk," he replied. "People always do when they're desperate." And she did. At a family gathering she didn't know I was listening to, she spoke freely. My son recorded it. She didn't notice. "She's lying," she said. "She's confused." I was protecting her. Protecting. Always that word. "She doesn't even know what she signed," she continued. I had to step in. The recording stopped. My son's voice followed. "Mom. I didn't know she said these things out loud." I closed my eyes. "She believed her own lies," I said. 2 days later, we were back in court. Not for guardianship. For something else. Exploitation. The judge's face was different this time. Harder. More focused. This court does not tolerate abuse of trust, he said. My daughter-in-law sat stiffly, her hands clenched. She avoided my eyes. Evidence was presented. Messages. Recordings. Attempted filings. False reports. One by one. Each one a crack in her mask. Then something unexpected happened. The judge turned to my son. You were aware of some of these actions? He asked. My son swallowed. Yes, he said. My heart broke a little. But I didn't stop them, he continued. And that was wrong. The room went quiet. The truth had a sound. It sounded like silence. After court, my son stood outside with me. I'm sorry, he said, tears in his eyes. I chose comfort over courage. I nodded. That choice has a cost, I said softly. He nodded too. That night, I received one last message from her. Not angry. Not threatening. Begging. Please. We can fix this. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I turned the phone off. Because some things cannot be fixed. They can only be faced. And tomorrow, everything would finally come into the light. In a way no one could ignore. The next morning felt different. Not lighter. Not easier. Just certain. Like the ground beneath my feet had finally stopped shifting. I woke up before the sun and sat by the window, watching the sky slowly change color. 4 years, my life had been decided behind closed doors. In whispers, in fake concern, in smiles that hid knives. But today, those doors were opening. And once they opened, nothing could be hidden again. My legal representative arrived early. He looked serious, but calm. Today won't be loud, he said as he set his briefcase down. But it will be permanent. I nodded. I'm ready, I said. And I meant it. The investigation moved faster than I expected. When people lie quietly, it takes time to expose them. But when they panic, they leave fingerprints everywhere. She had panicked. Emails she shouldn't have sent. Forms she filled out too quickly. Stories she changed depending on who was listening. Contradictions stacked on top of contradictions. And now, they were being reviewed by people who did not care who she thought she was. The first call came mid-morning. Ma'am, the woman said politely, we need to confirm something. Yes, I replied. There were multiple attempts to access your medical records without authorization. I closed my eyes. She said she was protecting me, I said softly. There was a pause. Protection does not look like this, the woman replied. By noon, the truth had spread further than I imagined. Not through gossip. Through systems. Letters were sent. Meetings were scheduled. Accounts were reviewed. And every single one pointed back to the same thing. Control. My son came by in the afternoon. He looked tired. Older. Like someone who had finally woken up after a long sleep. She didn't come home last night, he said quietly. I didn't react. She's been calling everyone, he continued. Crying. Saying you ruined her. I looked at him. Did I? I asked. He shook his head slowly. No, he said. She did. Those words mattered more than he knew. Later that day, we received confirmation. A formal finding. Not a judgment yet. But enough. Enough to strip her of every excuse she had been hiding behind. She is no longer authorized to act on your behalf in any capacity, my legal representative said. I felt my breath catch. For the first time in a long time. I was officially free. But freedom has a strange side effect. It makes people who thrived on control feel exposed. And exposure terrifies them. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Hello, I said. Her voice came through the line. Not angry. Not sharp. Small. You wanted this, she said quietly. I said nothing. You wanted everyone to look at me, she continued. Now they are. There was bitterness in her tone, but also fear. I never wanted revenge, I said calmly. I wanted peace. She laughed weakly. You could have stayed quiet, she said. I closed my eyes. And disappeared? I asked. Silence. Then she spoke again. You don't understand what you've done, she said. I opened my eyes. Oh, I replied. I understand perfectly. The line went dead. The next morning, something happened that I did not expect. A knock at the door. I froze for a moment. Then I looked through the peephole. 2 people stood there. Not her. Officials. Professional. Ma'am, one of them said when I opened the door, we need to inform you that formal charges are being prepared. My knees felt weak. Against her? I asked. Yes, he replied. For attempted exploitation and false reporting. I nodded slowly. Thank you felt too small. News travels fast when it's built on truth. Family members started calling. Some apologized. Others stayed quiet. A few tried to explain why they didn't want to get involved. I listened. But I didn't argue. Because I finally understood something very important. Silence is a choice. And so is speaking up. That night, my son sat across from me at the table. I don't know how to fix this, he said. You don't, I replied gently. You face it. He nodded. She says you destroyed her life, he whispered. I leaned forward. No, I said. I stopped her from destroying mine. I went to bed that night feeling something unfamiliar. Not victory. Not joy. Relief. But deep down I knew. This was not the end. Because when someone loses control, they don't always accept it. Sometimes. They make one final move. And I had a feeling. Her last move would be the most dangerous of all. I felt it before it happened. That quiet pressure in the air. That warning in my chest. The kind that tells you something bad is coming, even when everything looks calm. The days after the officials visited were strangely peaceful. Too peaceful. No messages. No calls. No sudden appearances. My phone stayed silent, and for the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. But peace that comes too fast is never real. It is only waiting. On the 3rd morning, I decided to go back to my house. Not to stay. Just to check. I needed to see it with my own eyes. My legal representative didn't like the idea. Take someone with you, he said. I will, I promised. My son offered to come. I hesitated. But then I nodded. This was his mess too. The drive there was quiet. No music. No small talk. Just the sound of the road and memories pressing against my mind. When we pulled into the driveway, my heart tightened. Something was wrong. The front door was open. Just a little. My son frowned. I locked it last night. I didn't answer. I stepped out of the car slowly. Every instinct in me screamed to turn around. But I didn't. Inside, the house smelled strange. Sharp. Chemical. The living room was a mess. Drawers pulled out. Cushions flipped. Papers scattered across the floor. My heart began to race. She's been here, my son whispered. I nodded. We walked further in. That's when I saw it. On the wall. Written in thick black marker. This isn't over. My legs went weak. My son pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. Before he could press the button, we heard it. A sound from upstairs. A slow creak. Like someone stepping on an old floorboard. My blood ran cold. Someone was still in the house. Mom, my son whispered. Stay here. I shook my head. No, I said quietly. I'm done hiding. We moved together toward the stairs. Each step felt heavy. The air grew warmer, thicker. At the top of the stairs, the bedroom door was closed. The door to my bedroom. The one place I never let her touch. My son reached for the handle. I grabbed his wrist. "Wait," I said. That's when the door opened. Slowly. And there she was. Her hair was messy. Her eyes wild. She looked nothing like the woman who once smiled and spoke softly about family. "You shouldn't be here," she said. My son froze. "What did you do?" he asked her. She laughed. "A broken sound. I took back what's mine," she said. My heart pounded. "You never owned any of it," I replied. Her face twisted. "I owned you," she screamed. Then she reached behind her and pulled something out. My breath caught in my throat. A stack of papers. Old. Yellowed. "You remember these?" she said, waving them. "You signed them years ago." I stared. They were real. Documents I barely remembered. From a time when I trusted without question. From a time when I was tired, and grieving, and alone. My hands began to shake. "You see," she said, smiling now. "I just needed time." My son stepped forward. "Put those down." She ignored him. "You exposed me," she said to me. "So now I expose you." Before I could react, she ripped one of the papers in half. Then another. And another. "You think the courts will believe you without proof?" she shouted. I felt my chest tighten. Then she said the words that chilled me to my bones. "If I can't control you." She took a step closer. "No one will." That was when I noticed something else. The smell. Stronger now. Gas. My eyes widened. "Did you?" I started. She smiled. And that smile told me everything. My son shouted, "Get out. Now." He grabbed my arm. We turned to run. But behind us, the door slammed shut. Locked. My heart pounded so loud I could hear nothing else. She stood between us and the exit. Calm now. Too calm. "You should have stayed quiet," she said softly. The room felt smaller. Hotter. And in that moment, I realized. This was her final move. And if we didn't act fast. The room felt like it was closing in on us. The smell of gas burned my nose. My son's hand was tight around my arm, his fingers shaking. "You've lost your mind," he shouted at her. "Open the door." She didn't move. She just stood there, blocking the way, her eyes empty, her mouth curled into a slow smile. "You pushed me to this," she said softly. "All of this could have ended if you had just stayed quiet." For a brief moment, I saw it clearly. This was never about money. It was never about the house. It was about power. And power, once exposed, becomes dangerous. I took a step forward. My son pulled me back. "Mom, don't." But I did. I looked straight at her and spoke slowly, clearly, with no fear left in my voice. "You don't control me," I said. "And you never did." She laughed. "You're standing in a locked room filled with gas. What power do you think you have now?" I reached into my pocket and pressed a button. Her smile froze. The sound that followed changed everything. Sirens. Loud. Close. Real. Her eyes widened. "What did you do?" she whispered. "I listened," I said calmly. "I learned. And I prepared." Earlier that morning, before we ever stepped into the house, I felt that warning in my chest. That quiet voice telling me not to trust the silence. So I did something simple. I turned on my phone's audio recorder. And I shared my live location. With my legal representative. With the police. With people who would come if something went wrong. And now they were here. The sirens grew louder. She stumbled backward. "No," she said. "No, no, no." Heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. Police! Open the door! She screamed. She ran toward the window. But it was too late. The door burst open. Officers rushed in, pulling us back, dragging her forward. She fought. She yelled. She cried. But no one listened. Because this time, the truth was louder than her lies. Outside, I sat wrapped in a blanket, my son beside me, shaking. Firefighters moved quickly. Police asked questions. Neighbors stared. The house stood behind us, still standing. So was I. An officer knelt in front of me. "Ma'am," he said gently, "you saved your own life today." I nodded slowly. "Yes," I said. "I did." She was taken away in handcuffs. As they passed me, she looked at me one last time. Not angry. Not proud. Broken. "You ruined me," she whispered. I met her eyes. "No," I said softly. "You did that yourself." In the weeks that followed, everything settled. Charges were filed. Protective orders were placed. Control was gone. Forever. The house was returned fully to me. My accounts were secured. My voice was restored. My son and I had many long talks. Some painful. Some quiet. Healing takes time. But accountability is where it begins. "I should have protected you," he said one night. I nodded. "Yes," I replied. "But now you know how." Today, I sit in my living room again. The same house. The same walls. But everything feels different. Lighter. Because this time, no one is standing over me. No one is whispering threats. No one is holding papers, trying to erase me. They thought they could control me. But what I did left them speechless. And if this story touched you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful, emotional stories like this one. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Your voice matters too. Because silence protects abusers. But speaking up? That changes everything.